Hi, I'm Simone. I run Defiant Life Coaching, and I want to talk about attachment styles yet again, but especially for neurodivergent people who have been traumatized and experience tons of anxiety. And this is primarily for anxiously attached folks. And if you want to work with me, my consults are free, and you can DM me for a consult as well. I will never reach out first, and all the links are in my bio. So, I've been thinking that it is incredibly difficult to rewire one's nervous system. I'm doing it, Sarah Jessica Parker is doing it. That's a Friends joke if you've ever watched that god awful show that we grew up on. But in any case, it aged me, the joke. So I'm thinking it's really difficult to, when you are other focused and relationship focused and have compulsive obsessive thoughts regarding your partner or relationship, or whether you can survive without a relationship, it's really hard to hear advice out there on how you should be able to validate yourself and be able to find comfort in yourself and be able to find safety in yourself, because given your childhood development and the anxiously attached style that you are experiencing as an adult, you don't feel safe with yourself. You're you know There's a fly here. Who's been talking about me, huh? What kind of shit are you talking about me? It's all good. It all turns into health, wealth, and abundance. I'm a witch, remember? Anyway, it's funny that it's interrupting me now. Must be all my exes and versions of my exes. So it's hard to find safety. I've worked with clients on this quite a bit, and I've worked on this with myself, where all that advice on finding peace and love and validation internally falls flat. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feed our nervous system the way that validation coming from external sources feeds our nervous system. And so, you get frustrated. And I think perhaps for those of us who are neurodivergent and anxiously attached, or healing an anxious attachment and are trying to rewire our nervous systems carefully, there has to be a better middle ground. There has to be a way that you say, okay, look, in part, I'm going to work on rewiring my nervous system and confirming to myself that I can validate myself, that I love myself, or at least feel neutrally about myself, that I will be okay regardless of whether I disappoint others, or my partner disappoints me, or somebody says something about my outfit, whatever. Because we are often neurodivergent, we hyper focus not just on people but on things they say and have said tens of years ago. There's just too much rumination up there. Okay. And so distracting yourself, finding a new hobby, forcing yourself to like go and hang out with friends and go and hang out with yourself, journal, create art, is work. That's not easy to do. Of course, it's easier to continue to ask for reassurance of your partner. Do you love me? What if I were a worm? Am I the best sex you've ever had? Like, over and over and over and over. And as you know, that kind of behavior does not actually soothe the anxiety, which is that you will be abandoned. And what's important as we work on this is reminding ourselves that the more that we force ourselves to do things on our own, or with friends, or outside the relationship milieu, the more we rewire our nervous system for safety with our own selves. And of course, this can also happen with friends, right? And for many parents, it happens with their children, like really just anybody else. We often, as autistic people, don't really differentiate, how we feel about our partners versus how we feel about our friends. Sometimes our friendships are far, 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 far more intense. And so the same constant attention that we seek, we want from our friend, and it's also because we're able to give it too. Be that healthy or unhealthy, doesn't really matter. So we kind of have to transition where for a time you're, seeking validation from others, and not that that's wrong, it's just the degree to which you're seeking it and the intensity with which you seek it and how much you ruminate about this and whatever, and then force ourselves work up the escalator, walk up the down escalator, that is, to try to find safety in ourselves. But I often feel, or used to feel, I'm getting better. And my clients say things like, I don't want to belong only to myself. And, there's a spiritual component to this where everybody is you pushed out and we're all one consciousness. And it's ultimately all about you talking to yourself when there's others and triggers and whatnot. And that's something you can understand intellectually, but not necessarily feel neurologically. And that's really the core of the issue is I don't belong to myself. I want to belong to someone breathlessly and endlessly and with all this devotion and whatever. And that's unhealthy because if there's any rupture or issue or a breakup, you feel like you're going to die. And there's all this literature on how the person that autistic people cling to also becomes their co-regulator, and it's like a much worse breakup than like for neurotypical people. And so we have to figure out a way to get ourselves out of these attachment styles and cycles and whatever, because you're not going to die. You're going to show up for yourself. Is it going to feel comfortable? No, it's not going to feel comfortable, and you're going to need to develop new coping skills. And, people break up and go through transitions, divorces, and whatever every day, and I work with them through that horrid sensation of, like, my entire life is falling apart. My life has fallen apart many a time, and look at me, I am still here. Have I felt like death? A lot of the time. Do I also have severe panic and anxiety that has to do with anything really going on with my partner, with my children, with my friends? Yes, I do all the time. I'm on meds and I do EFT tapping. I have vagus nerve stimulation tech. I have a bunch of other things, and it's relentless. So as an adult, this feels really tough too, because you're like, not, you're like, how can I make everything in my mind about a person or a friend or a child of mine or something? Like, when can I get rest? And honestly, it's important to start observing just like how much someone occupies, your mind. Like, even if you have to start, making little lines in your notebook about how much you're thinking about them, and how little you're thinking about just doing things for yourself, watching TV, exercising, going to take a shower, enjoying private time with yourself, exploring your spiritual path, writing that book of yours. That's kind of what I'm trying to do too. And I think just to acknowledge I don't feel safe within myself. I don't think I'm worthy enough to belong to myself. I don't think I can only depend on myself. And start to like untangle what else about your childhood or your parents or the dynamics there make you feel that way. Because believe me, a lot of our parents made sure that we are reliant and dependent on them, or not able to like be in this world, which is already ableist and sanist and oppressive, on our own. And so, we struggle with having financial literacy or driving a car or whatever. And this is something that is a long journey. And so if you listen this far, book a free consult with me so that you don't have to go at it alone, and I can give you specific steps to get the hell out of your head and out of this obsession with your partner or friend or child.